And got crazy nationally, right? And it's
You talking
gotten,
about with the Minnesota situation or what?
yeah, that and more importantly, the Iranian, the attack on Iran by the Israelis who were preemptively defending themselves.
So there was there was 3 days notice given to Iran.
Given to Iran.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of how it works. Do you remember middle of last week, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday at the latest, that
Hmm.
the United States started pulling their diplomatic people from certain locations?
Hmm.
We already knew what the Israelis were going to do,
Oh, I mean, there ain't no question of that. They tried to float that
right?
lie, but I
We
think that
knew.
discounted real quick.
Yes, so we knew. Um, we kept talking about the negotiations that were supposed to happen yesterday
Hmm.
or whatever time it would have been, wherever they were meeting. I can't remember where they were holding the meetings, whether it was Jordan or somewhere. Don't remember. But I guess Sunday for us.
Hmm.
And the Iranians bought that hook, line, and sinker. I can't remember the date last week, but I want to say it was either Monday or Tuesday of last week.
Hmm.
The Iranians floated the idea that they had intercepted key intelligence from Israel that gave them all of the keys to Israel's civil defense system.
Hmm.
They let that be known. You can't do that. That's like slapping a pit bull because he's on a light tether and you don't think he can jump out there and bite you, so you're just gonna keep slapping him. Iran has no defenders in the region.
Right.
Zero. They have nobody.
Hmm.
Hezbollah is still recovering. We know what Hamas is right now.
Hmm.
And Russia has their hands tied.
Hmm.
Nobody else in that region is going to help Iran.
Hmm.
Iran should have kept themselves quiet, kept simply at the negotiating table, planned for time, while if they were trying to develop a bomb, give themselves more time to develop a bomb. But they didn't. And Israel is a paranoid, schizophrenic country.
Hmm.
And they did what paranoid schizophrenics do and what an angry pit bull would do when it breaks that tether.
Well, I'm saying they knew. I'm saying that the U.S. and Israel knew before then.
I
But
don't
Trump
think so.
gave them. Let me finish now, brother. Trump gave
Okay.
them 60 days to get a treaty signed. 60 days.
Okay.
Israel attacked them on the 61st day.
So that's another sign, right?
Hmm.
If you're Iran, because we know who Israel is.
And we know
There
they should know by
and
now
we
who the
and
United States is.
they should know by now who the United States is. So the fact that that snake will bite you if you put that snake in your pocket, that it'll bite you, should not come as a surprise.
Mm-mm.
So if you know that you can't defend yourself, and there's no way that Iran could defend themselves from that kind of attack. Now nobody's going to invade Iran. You're in a whole bunch of hurt if you go in there invading Iran. on their own territory. But a bombing raid like what Israel's doing, Iran doesn't have the technology to be able to defend against that.
Right? They don't.
And if you know that that's your situation, you have to do everything that you possibly can to play for time.
Well, in today's environment, brother, I don't think that Israel's going to do what it's going to do now because they think they got all the cards.
They're holding all the cards. The
Right?
Saudis don't want anything to do with this.
They don't want to do nothing about it. Most of the other people in the region ain't gonna do nothing about it. Heck, the
Yeah,
Saudis just saying something about Gaza.
I know.
They
After
made,
all this
made
time,
some
they
strong
condemn that.
statement about Gaza. I'm saying, hey, that ship done left the sea. This
Exactly.
determined. Why are you just saying something?
Right.
Where were you when it counted?
Exactly.
So Israel's gonna attack them. Israel been wanting to attack Iran anyway.
Yes.
Regardless of what Iranians did or whatever, the news media is already saying that, like they do in everything else, Israel's defending itself.
Right.
They've been defending
Yeah.
themselves since October 3rd. Them little babies they've been killing were about to attack Israel.
Exactly.
And
They've been getting away with it since 1947, 1948.
they're going until something else happens, they're gonna continue to get away with it, bro.
Right. So until the Islamic world there in the Middle East decides that they're actually going to function as an ummah, Israel's going to walk all over them.
That's gonna happen. Because they still mad, they still half of them still mad with Israel. I mean Iran, because they share.
Exactly.
Ain't got
And the
nothing
Iranians,
left,
the Iranians still, every time you bring up Saudi Arabia, they start crying about Hussein
which is
or Ali, both of them,
crazy.
which is really crazy.
Dumb.
It
Well, I got
makes you think they're insane.
yep. I got in just in time. It's pouring down outside, right?
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Oh, hold on for a minute. I gotta go ask my neighbor a question before I get in.
Okay.
I'll be
Okay.
right back.
All right.
No one
So if you
responded,
want to,
say, huh?
let's uh let's go ahead. Let's open up first, and then you can switch it on.
Okay.
And I'll open up with Al-Fatiha.
Okay, go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين.
Alhamdulillah. All right. So you want me to go ahead and play it?
Let's do it.
All right, sir.
Bantu knots, and afros are hairstyles traditionally worn by people of African descent. Now, you probably heard about people being discriminated against because of their hair in places like the US and the UK, but it's even happening in countries like Jamaica and South Africa. So why is black hair being banned in black countries? Incidents of hair discrimination are occurring across the African diaspora in black majority countries. In July 2023, a high school in Trinidad banned more than 20 boys from attending their graduation ceremony because their hair did not meet the school's definition of neat and tidy. And in Jamaica, a 5-year-old girl was barred from her school because she had locks. The school prohibited locks on non-Rastafarian students, claiming the hair could lead to lice or junjo or mold. and Jamaica's Supreme Court agreed. In 2020, the court ruled it was legal for the school to enforce a no braids, no beads, no locking of the hair policy. One of the justifications was for hygienic purposes, which is complicated, but you'll find out why soon. Over 12,000 kilometers away, a similar situation occurred in Kenya. A Rastafarian student was kicked out of school because she had locks, and it was only after a court order that she was allowed to return to class. The catch? She had to cover her locks with a turban. And in 2016, South African students protested what they called racist hair policies at Pretoria High School for Girls, a formerly all-white school. The school's code of conduct said hairstyles should be conservative, neat, and in keeping with the school uniform. Students claimed they were prohibited from wearing afros and were often told to straighten their hair. Notice a trend?
It's teaching self-hate. It's telling them who you are naturally is not good enough for our workplace, our sense of what elegance is, what proper dress is, so that in order to fit in, you have to change who you are fundamentally. Why is our natural body seen as something negative? And we have to address that. It's about the politics of the body. It's about making Black people feel inferior.
That's Carolyn Cooper, former columnist at The Gleaner. One installment from 2022 actually explored how hair policies can teach students self-hate. So where does this concept of self-hate come from? Let's backtrack for a second. Hair discrimination is nothing new. It has a long history dating back to 15th century West Africa.
Hair discrimination essentially began when Europeans came in contact with African people. And to be honest, in the very beginning, there was no sense of discrimination. In fact, European explorers and travelers, they actually wrote about the dynamic and impressive hairstyles of the African people they were encountering, that were their trade partners.
That's Lori Tharps, co-author of Hair Story, which investigates the history of Black hair in America.
But we know that the hair was revered. We know it was respected. We know it was a sign of identity.
Hair and hairstyles indicated everything from a person's tribe, social rank, marital status, and age to their religion, wealth, and where they're from. For example, the Karamo people of Nigeria shaved their heads and left a tuft of hair on top. And the young girls of Senegal's Wolof people partially shaved their heads to signify that they weren't of marrying age.
It's almost like a person's social security card, because everything was able to be told about a person, who they were.
So what changed? The advent of the transatlantic slave trade, which ruptured Africans' connection to their hair.
It was no longer, wow, these are really impressive hairstyles. They're really communicative. It went to, well, how are we going to justify what we're doing to African people? Why don't we say that they are less than human?
Europeans used the physical features of Africans, like their skin color and their hair, as justifications for enslaving them.
There was this real concerted effort by Europeans to distinguish African people as, closer to animals than humans. If you see posters, written things about Black people in, 14th, 15th, 16th century, in the prime of the European transatlantic slave trade, you'll see that hair is often referred to as fur, wool. It's used, the words to describe it are words that you would use to describe animal fur, animal hair.
And slave traders would shave the heads of Africans headed to the Americas under the guise of sanitation.
But we know that Europeans fully understood the significance of these hairstyles. So what they were doing was beginning this process of demoralizing and dehumanizing African people by removing their key source of identity. But it also had the very practical effect of making sure that people couldn't connect with one another. Before African people even left the shores of Africa, they had left behind their precious reverential relationship with their hair. So they arrived into the new world with this already kind of sense of loss with their identity.
But the degradation of African hair didn't stop there. During the Middle Passage, the voyage to the Americas, English slave traders referred to Africans' hair as dreadful because it naturally formed into locks. Even the abolition of slavery in the U.S. and throughout the British Empire wasn't enough to change the perception of Black people or their hair.
Black people understood that if, in order for them to survive and thrive in societies where Europeans still ruled, that they would have to assimilate. That meant that Black people were consistently trying to alter their hair and make it look more like European hair, not because they wanted to be beautiful, compared to Europeans, but simply to be treated with the same level of respect as other human beings.
Throughout the 20th century, we see Black people chase the European aesthetic of straight hair. While Madam C.J. Walker did not invent the hot comb, she and others like G.A. Morgan helped popularize straightened products among Black people in the early 1900s. And it was Walker who outfitted the hot comb with wider teeth so that Black people could achieve straighter hair. This straightening tool and others spread across the diaspora. And ads like this affirmed the war declared on bad hair, that all you needed was a hot comb to improve your appearance. Then chemical straighteners and other hair products hit the market with ads that doubled down on the notion that Black hair in its natural state was inferior. Perma-straight allowed you to get relaxed hair that looks naturally straight. Posner's Moisture Proof guaranteed to keep your hair from going back to its natural state. And Duke's Pomade provided Black men with straight hair she'll want to run her fingers through.
This idea of straightening the hair was done, again, yes, it was beauty, but it was way more, the engine driving that movement was really about economic access, because you couldn't get a job, you couldn't be taken seriously professionally if you didn't have straight hair as a Black person. Now, does that mean every single Black person was straightening their hair? No. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not is right. From the early 1900s up through the 70s, we also see the formation of the Pan-African, civil rights, and Black Power movements, all of which challenged racism and promoted racial pride.
But the grand majority of Black people who were trying to assimilate, whether they were in the United States or England or any other, colonial ruled nation, it was the way to get ahead, was to look the part. And the reality was, people who had the right hairdo and who could assimilate visually would get the jobs, and they would be able to, let's say, move about in societal hierarchies, class-wise.
And that was evident in South Africa, where hair played a key role in determining race. Remember, during apartheid, the National Party instituted laws that divided people by race: white, colored, or native, meaning Black. And race controlled all aspects of life, restricting or granting access to where you could live, work, be educated, or obtain healthcare. Some South Africans were forced to participate in the pencil test, which would determine a person's race based on their hair texture. A pencil would be placed in a person's hair. If it slid out, they would be considered white. If not, they would shake their head, and if the pencil fell out, they'd be classified as colored, otherwise Black. Absurd? Yes, I know. But the desire for the European aesthetic also extended to skin. Started in the 50s, Black people were inundated with skin bleaching products that equated lighter skin to success and beauty. Like this South African ad, which said Ambi can give you smoother, clearer, lighter skin you've noticed successful people usually have. Or this one, where whitening cream helped Susie achieve success and stardom. In the US, these ads published in Ebony magazine promised lighter, lovelier skin beauty and claimed men flocked around women with a clear, bright complexion. So why, hundreds of years later, after slavery and colonization have ended, are African and Caribbean countries still dealing with hair discrimination?
As a popular phrase in Jamaica goes, nothing black, no good. Nothing black is good, which means that we have been brought up to internalize negative attitudes to our body, to our hair, to our skin. It's really a part of a process of dehumanization in which Black people were expected to reject their own identity and try to aspire to be white.
It's been years and years and years and years and years of being told, of mainstream media reinforcing these ideas. Books, movies, television, all of these things have told us over and over and over and over again, implicitly and explicitly, that Black hair was inferior, that it was ugly, that it was uncivilized, that it was inappropriate for the boardroom, the classroom, corporate places. So that the fact that the discrimination still occurs, even in a Black country or majority Black country, it makes sense because we've all been indoctrinated by the same lies.
But this conditioning is being undone by years of activism and now legislation, like in Anguilla, which became the first Caribbean island to introduce a national hair discrimination policy. And in 2023, Trinidad and Tobago became the second. Its Ministry of Education introduced a new hair code that allows students to wear locks, twists, plaits, afros, and cornrows.
So we are chipping away at that global culture that still seems to deify whiteness or an approximation to whiteness. It's a very big battle though. And even though we have educators, we have programming, we have the natural hair movement that's gone global. And even as we see, more Black and brown people, in prominent places in our, entertainment culture, they are the lightest version of Black and brown. They are the versions who have hair that more closely resembles European hair. We still are continuously shown that, beautiful is lighter skin, looser hair.
For Cooper, dismantling the notion that Black people and their hair are inferior begins with the self.
As Marcus Garvey, the Jamaican Pan-Africanist, brilliantly said, we will emancipate ourselves from mental slavery because none but ourselves can free the mind. It is only when we as Black people decide that we're no longer going to buy into these negative stereotypes that we're going to free ourselves. We have to reach a stage in our consciousness where we say, who I am is more than sufficient.
Controlled supply chains. Why should the DR Congo continue to fuel
All right. That was it.
That was good.
Before we begin the discussion, let me show you this last statement. It ain't working. Oh, can you see it? Can y'all see the screen?
There we go. Yeah, President Traore's
Okay.
message.
After I watched that, this is the first thing that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you the scene that caused me to do that when it showed the African political process where you had leaders of that country in in a political setting
Mm-hmm.
with white wigs on like they were
Right.
back in the mother.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's what came to my mind. They took the colonizers' formality and put on white wigs like the colonizer does, which probably was full of lice and other
That's why
bad.
they wore the wig. Their hair, they couldn't come in there with their natural hair because they had lice all in their head.
And the wigs had lice in them too. So I'm saying,
Yeah.
well, we in bad shape.
We're disorganized, Adam. We're
Bad. Don't
totally
even have a clue.
disorganized.
Don't have a clue what's going on.
No. Because now I only say this about the school system. We so happy for two things. Number one, our baby's gonna learn to read.
Mm-hmm.
Because God knows we didn't take no time with them
Mm-hmm.
to read to them and try to teach them to read and understand, alphabets and of maybe 2 or 3 different languages. We didn't take any time with them. And number two, man, that $950 a month of daycare. Lord, 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 I'm glad that's lifted up off me.
Hmm.
because the school system gonna babysit them for free,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Probably so.
to go down there and make noise because they sent my baby home with a note saying you got to do something about this hair because it don't meet code. I'm gonna untwist the hair and get the razor and shave his head
Hmm.
because these good white folks gonna teach him how to read, and I ain't got to pay no daycare.
Right.
And I ain't never going to a parent teacher conference, and I'm not gonna be a part of the PTA, and I'm never going to a school board meeting because Lord knows if we showed up at a school board meeting and said y'all need to change the hair policy would change
Right.
just because they knew now that we cared about our children and the effect that their policies have on our children.
Hmm.
We don't care enough. Just give us some cracklings and some lard
Hmm.
and some meal, cornmeal. We can make some cornbread. We're good. It's all about us and our willingness to fight to maintain our own dignity.
Right. So
Because
true.
it's like what you and I were talking about earlier about Israel. We know who these other people are. They're not hiding anything. They throwing rocks and standing there trying to see what it hit.
Hmm.
They're not hiding. We're a lot of us, and thank goodness it is changing somewhat in some areas. A lot of us are standing up for our own humanity and saying that's wrong. There's got to be a better way than that which you are executing or
Right.
attempting to execute.
Hmm.
Got to be a better way. Because I understand and I'm disappointed in them that they haven't grown out of their racist ways, domineering ways, whatever you want to call it. I'm disappointed in them, but I'm not surprised by it.
That's true.
Yeah. Nobody has made them uncomfortable enough that they actually have to think about changing behavior.
Hmm.
So I mean it's up to us. Of course the other side of the coin is do for self. Have your
Right.
own school and your own businesses.
Right.
And let them come over there and try to recruit your 6'6", 230-pound power forward to go to their school and just look at him and say, nah, first thing y'all gonna try to do is get him to cut his hair,
Hmm.
or get him to do this or do that or whatever. And we'll keep him right here where we can take care of him. So I mean that's the whole thing. I mean, you're working toward it. You've been working toward it. Some of us are waking up and trying to do more to work toward it. That we have to have our own means. and not just to make a statement, but to make a statement. So that we protect the psyche, we protect the soul of our community,
Right.
and we strengthen it, with proper behavior. We're not talking about we're just going to let anybody run around and do anything they want to do. We got standards, but one of the standards is not going to be repudiation of who we are.
And that's
And
true.
yeah, I think there are people that are working toward that. I'd be a very sad person if I didn't think that there were people in our community who are earnestly working toward that. So we have to just steadily do that. Assalamu alaikum, Mom Tariq. We didn't mean to ignore your presence. Just get fired up sometimes.
Well, Laker my salon, do y'all thing. That's okay. It's good to listen. It's good to listen. Believe me, it's good to listen. But thanks anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it just, my older son, he was in high school. He locked his hair up. And fortunately, I mean, I don't even know if I should say fortunately. Maybe it's more the day and age where he was. He was a good student, good basketball player, good citizen. People liked him, so it was cool. Nobody ever said anything, about his locks. And I mean, it gets here and there. People are more enlightened, and people understand African culture and African American culture, and they know they're gonna have to deal with it. I'm surprised. And I don't know how long ago, because she was talking about 2023, which is pretty recent, that you would have a school in Jamaica, that you would have situations like that in South Africa after Mandela, where they're rejecting traditional, you know, African hairstyles and, modes of dress and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that it wasn't because of indecency.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm sure the people in those institutions probably thought this is rebellion. We're trying to train you to be a factory worker, and you thinking for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have that. Why, the people that fund this thing and all this, these rich white people who own the factories, whatever, they don't want that. They want you to come pre-trained to follow the rules to a T. No fair thinking for yourself.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I know that there are African Americans who are in positions that they don't want to lose, that they're going to try to enforce that type of thinking. And some like, I remember watching I think it was Netflix, may have been some other stream, the Madam CJ, am I telling her name right? Madam
C.J. Walker.
Walker. Yeah,
Yeah.
CJ Walker. Her story. And, number one, as an African American, I got to be a little proud that she was able to build the business that she built. Right?
Right.
I got some pride in that. At the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, because I remember my own dear mother sitting there with a hot iron, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, that's too close. You're gonna burn yourself.
Mm-hmm.
trying to get her hair straight and style if she didn't have time to go to the beauty salon, so she would have her hair right for Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Yeah.
now everybody on here, because there's nothing but us men on here right now. Assalamu alaikum, brother Fami. You probably too young for this, but Adam and I, Imam Tariq, I'm gonna throw you in there with us. Did you ever go get a process? Did you ever have a process Jerry curl on your head?
Okay, Jerry Curl. Yeah, Jerry Curl.
Yeah.
Man, you ought to go. Oh, why you wrong for that?
Look, I did it. Me and my cousin decided we were going out on a Saturday night, and we did the Jerry curl. My head is still on fire, brother.
I'm trying to remember if I did a Jerry Curl. I believe I did for a short moment.
Yeah, that's all it took was a short moment. I never did it again.
Man, that's a good one, brother.
But it was, hey, look, it was that same thing. And I'm gonna tell you, it was 1984. It was Prince and the Revolution and Morris Day and the Time.
Come on now.
Right? There it was. And you hit the dance floor, you kind of wanted to be Morris Day. Right?
Oh.
But I have to admit, I never did get a Jerry curl. I never did cook my hair, straighten my hair, because by the time I got to that mode, I was African. I was black.
Okay.
You follow?
I do. I follow you.
That's where I was.
Okay.
You know, so I didn't have that problem. You know.
You are fortunate.
Yeah, I was fortunate at the time. I was very fortunate.
Because when I look back on it, I understand the argument of the society pushing you to be something other than you are and making that appear just like the greatest thing in the world, and also seeing the reaction of your audience, because all the young women at Studio 67 here in Dallas wanted to touch my hair. It was an empowering moment. Right. You know, and that's what they were selling, and it sold. It sold like hotcakes. And if not for the pain, heaven knows I may have done it again.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Willis.
Walaikum salam.
You know
about Studio 67, so you know about RJ's by the lake and all that then.
Dude, all of that, brother. But hey, Bernard's too, all of it.
I'm still working, but I'm on mute. I'll come in shortly, inshallah.
All right. Oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, the societal pressures. Societal pressures are there. And when you're living in, you know, a place, especially a smaller country, and the struggle, maybe a less economically advantaged country, and the struggle to lift yourself up is tied to the dominant culture being comfortable with you. Yeah, I understand it. I understand the pressure.
Well, that's one thing I disagree with that sister was talking about. They were doing that so they can get a position, whatever.
Hmm.
Our people were victims of white supremacy.
Yes.
And that's the only reason they did that way. You
Yeah.
follow?
Right.
So I disagreed with that analogy.
Let me ask you something, Adam. If
Hmm.
you if you look a certain way, the the aptitude test place you in the middle of the pack, but you have a certain look, and you still throw your fist up in the air, and you're down for your people, and you'll fight for your people. But the way you look is attractive to somebody. And of all the people that took the aptitude test to go get this training or to get this job, entry level position, they choose you. And you're not going to say no. I mean, you went there for a reason, to try to do your best, make your family proud, use the education that you got. They gave you the job. Now, the 10 people who were at the top score on the aptitude test, all of them look like Whoopi.
Hmm.
And they're much smarter than you. But you got the job. And 6 months down the road, you've been promoted already. And the next time the aptitude test is given, you're one of the people grading the aptitude test and making notes on who should get the position.
Hmm.
Now, if you're an intelligent person, you already know what the game is, right? If you're not tricking yourself, you already know what the game is. So when you make your selection of the two people to pull out of that group of 30 who took the aptitude test, you're probably just to keep people from wondering who you really are. You might go for one light skinned and one kind of brown skin, but you're not going for the dark skin with the thick hair that the comb won't go through,
Hmm.
right? Because you're trying to protect your little bit. You're trying to lean in and really and truly be legit, but you can't go all the way. And the longer you do that, the farther you get away from being able to have any kind of real influence on correcting the problem. Till you get to the point that the only thing you can do is walk away. And the moment you walk away, they put a replica in your place. Look like you, walk like you, talk like you. Might as well be you.
Assalamu alaikum. I
Well,
can't help
salam.
I can't help but say this. There's a saying, I think it's attributed to Aristotle, and it said, I think it goes like, beauty is a greater recommendation than any letter of introduction. So their standard of beauty here, it's going to keep you moving. So I can understand that, this Western standard.
Yeah. And the only way out of that is to have competitive institutions of your own, where you can really make the attempt to do everything based on merit, true merit. and in doing so, be able to have a more excellent institution and product of that institution. And that's, that's part of our struggle.
Well, what's happening now is that there was another way that facilitated us getting out of that trap, known as the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the Caucasian is trying to do away with that. You understand? Because the federal government gave us some semblance of justice, fair play,
Right.
doing the right thing. So they're pushing the lie that what the federal government did was not reward merit, but reward mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, what we were under before was mediocrity. The reality is, and what they're
Right.
what and the people that they're appointing now to take a place is definitely mediocrity.
Worse than mediocrity.
Yeah, worse. You're right. But the MAGA types have no clue at all. I mean, I'll be getting some wild responses. There's one guy, and we respond to No King, the No King movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this one guy says, since July 4th, 1776, every day has been No King's Day. Oh, that's true in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I replied to that garbage. And I told the man he was right. I said, you're right, Frank. That's why it's important to tell the ones who are trying to change that tradition, no king. So he said, I don't see it the way you see it. Come hell or high water, not having a king, but not change. I bet there are some of you wish was the king, and you would think it's fine. All right? That's what he says.
Mm.
Then this guy goes back using AI, talking about how many kings in Africa throughout history, trying to point to that situation. I haven't responded to him yet. I'm getting ready to do it probably before I lay down, but it's the first time I've seen a Caucasian refer to African kingdoms where he did it from AI, such
Mm-hmm.
as the Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, Mansa Musa. He was way back because he looked at AI. Right. Right. So anyway, something else, man. But that's what we got to do. But like you always say there, look at, if we don't do something different, and this is a perfect opportunity to do something different, to not rely on the old things we relied upon, to move
Mm-hmm.
away from the imagery and things that this experience in America has less in our minds, where we're substandard, we're inferior. You know what I'm saying? And the problem with white superiority isn't what they think. The problem with white superiority is what we think.
Correct.
And we got to kill it in our thinking. And there was something, man, Muhammad said. I think I text y'all that. Do y'all see that text I sent out there?
I don't know.
I think I put a text in there.
Is it today or just
Yeah,
recently?
today. And a brother, I don't know if it was written or it was a video. It might have been a video.
No, I didn't get anything from you today, text-wise.
Okay. What I did, or maybe I didn't. Yeah, I did. And they had New Africa. See if I can send this to my computer here. See if I can do that. Go ahead and talk to that while I make this transition.
Okay. One of my cousins had mentioned, because her husband, somebody that got downsized from the government. They live in Columbia, Maryland, and he's talking, just talking kind of a group family chat about some of the African Americans who had left, different parts of the government, whether it be education, health and human services, so on and so forth, setting up their own companies to capture the inevitable government contracts that are going to come about because the federal government, with these new people in place, they're not going to be able to handle what the federal government would normally have to deal with. And that might be an opportunity for some of these individuals, like her husband, because she's pushing her husband to do this, to wean themselves off of being dependent on the federal government and be more independent and be able to sell their services to not only the United States government, but other governments and entities, whether it be at the state level or whatever, that need their kind of expertise.
All right, let's see if I got it. Mm. I haven't got it yet. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, can you see it?
Servants are slaves, thing. Mm-hmm. And they look at their faces and they oh no, he's not one of us. you all stay to yourselves. Same thing in South America that was here. Mm-hmm. And I don't care how much freedom we have been given and how good things look. On the whole, most white people still have that same spirit when it comes to us. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They accept your rights, but please, stay to yourself. And that's exactly what we should do. More so at this time than any other time in our history of thousands of years. In Africa and in America, now is the time for us to stay to ourselves and build a model society. And do answer God's invitation that he extended to the Islamic world. Let there come out of you a community upholding the best of what I have revealed and given to you in Muhammad. Huh? And not being afraid of the criticism of any criticizer. That's Quran. Huh? Yes. You will be the ones, huh? That will be successful. All right. Well, I say the covenant have lost its bearers. And we are picking it up. We're going to carry the covenant. Yes, we're going to carry the covenant of God here in America, and we're going to establish a people and a community inside of this United States of America. That will be a witness, that will be a testimony, that will be a witness before all the nations of the world that a marvelous thing has been done by God here in the United States of America. And I'm telling you that our model will have more power to convert the world to Islam than anything they ever had going for them other than Muhammad himself and the best of his followers at that time. And we were brought here to be slaves.
All right.
Okay, so Adam, this looks like this is even post 2005. We
2000 what?
know his speech
Yeah.
and his appearance. It looks like this was done after 2005.
Oh, I'm not, probably so. Yeah.
I'm just saying the tone, the amount of gray in his beard, so on and so forth. This looks like after 05.
Right.
And I think this is total conjecture. And you know him, Imam Tariq knew him. I'm thinking even Ishmael probably knew him better than I did. Sister Khalida, assalamu alaikum, thanks for joining us. You probably knew him better than I did from your father's time with him.
Alaikum assalam, yes.
He seems in this to have lost faith in the collaborative effort to meld us into the greater community. And I'm not saying to abandon any friendships, partnerships, allyships. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is one of the strongest calls. Just those few minutes is one of the strongest calls I've heard him make in his other lectures. And I'm just thinking about tone here for us to do something that's a little separate.
Well, that wasn't new to me. That wasn't new to me at all. I remember, and I forgot what year it was. It had to be in the 90s. And in the late 90s, I believe, and someone can help me, because we used to have a convention in Chicago. And in this particular year, ICNA decided, or ISNA, one of them, decided to have their convention in Chicago Labor Day weekend. Does anybody remember that?
Yep, I do.
You remember? Okay. So I was at the hotel, and Imam Muhammad, Imam Omar Shahid, Imam Kareem out of California, Imam Clement, they left the hotel and went over to the ICNA convention. What was the ISNA? Anyway, their convention on Saturday. To their general, they had invited the man. So they came back. I'm at the elevator getting ready to go upstairs in the hotel, and up walks Imam Muhammad and his delegation. They had just come back from that event. So we're on the elevator, and the Imam said this. He said, they are proposing a marriage. Right? Then the Imam said, I wonder who's going to be the husband and who's going to be the wife. This was the Imam's exact quote. Who's going to be the husband and who's going to be the wife? You understand?
Yes.
The Imam went along with stuff for niceties, but he never abdicated his responsibility, his goal of establishing al-Islam amongst us, not to follow nobody. We can have niceties and cooperate as long as they're cooperative. But he always had the spirit of, who's going to be the husband? Who's going to be? In other words, we ain't going to just fold up what we doing to follow y'all. You understand? So to me, that speech that I just played was our reminder of what our focus should be. You understand? That's what our focus should be. That is that Allah is doing a marvelous thing in America. A marvelous thing. He's always said that a few times in different ways. So we need to develop what the Imam is giving us to develop this marvelous thing in America. And I'll leave with this one. The Imam said, what I'm giving you will last 1,000 years. Anybody remember that, or it's just me?
I've heard it repeated often enough that it almost seems like I heard it from him.
All right.
I believe it's over 1,000 years to be exact, but yes, sir, I remember that.
Well,
close
the
enough.
way we're going, 1,000 is a whole bunch.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? So we need, and this is what I was saying Sunday, Brother Edward. And it's also basically why I said what I said Sunday. For you also, Brother Ishmael. We need to learn the Arabic language. So we need to learn the Arabic of the Quran for understanding. But as I said before, I've heard Brother Kutbahs, they could have saved a half an hour in the Kutbah if they quit trying to explain the Arabic that they're translating. because they might have it wrong. Will you agree?
I agree with that.
I agree. I agree with that as well.
It's about getting to the meat. It's about getting to the meat of it. So I agree.
Yeah, just gonna get to the meat. I mean, there's enough in the English that can motivate me. I don't need to develop how the words are formed and whatever. I don't need all that. Because you might have it wrong. And right now, I trust Imam Muhammad's tafsir, which he said might last 1,000 years. Will last 1,000 years. So just follow the leader. There's less things in our midst that we need to understand.
Yeah, we're getting some watered down version of that though.
Of what?
Of his tafsir.
We're getting a watered down version of it.
We're getting, in some places, we're getting watered down versions of his tafsir.
If we're actually getting his tafsir.
Okay, so that's one. This will come back to yes.
Huh? Yeah, well,
yesterday's conversation. We need to get this stuff straight.
Well, see, here's the thing. The man said, he said it here. I said it one time, and I guess we're playing, he being mad. I could care, and I said it the other day, last week, I could care less what they think about what we're doing. I wouldn't give it a bit of, maybe I'm coming too direct. I ain't being nice enough. I could care less what they think about what we're doing. And I wouldn't go all out the way to try to make sure they feel comfortable. I'm not going to disrespect them, but I'm not going to try to make them feel comfortable as though I got to apologize because I'm following something I get from my leader. And I got to apologize to you to mention it. I have people in cookballs don't want to mention Imam Muhammad. If they do, they got to issue a disclaimer or some apology. Forget all that. They can quote Maududi, they can quote anybody else. Nobody had no problems. But as soon as they quote Imam Muhammad, and some of those immigrants and some African Americans who follow those immigrants say under their breath, stuck for Allah.
Exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to appease them. I'm trying to fulfill this mission that Imam has left us with. And I ain't got time to worry about how you taking it. You understand? I don't need your approval. We got a job to do.
Yes, I agree.
So let's get on our job.
Yeah.
And if you really listen to what the man is saying and understand what he's saying, us doing our job will not oppress you. It will not treat you wrong. It really would probably be better for you if you but knew it.
Agreed.
I finished looking at that video. I guess it was last Monday we watched that video with Sherman Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
And it was pretty interesting. And the sister brought up Syria when Imam sent a group of students to Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me go back and think about the situation in Syria. And we probably can count on one hand the number of students that came back from Syria and are helping the community. I don't know if y'all know of any of them.
I think I do.
Not maybe one or two in our direct community.
Right.
I know some that have drifted away into other communities.
Did
Assalamu
salam.
Alhamdulillah. I'm not sure. I know Anissa Dewan.
Correct.
I'm not
Anissa Dewan.
Mm-hmm.
Suleiman in Atlanta.
Yes.
And his wife.
Yeah.
And Rashad, was he one of them?
No, Rashad didn't go. No, he didn't go. He didn't go to Syria.
Okay.
But the point I wanted to make was that, I'm saying that first as a disclaimer, because we know who came back and actually are helping the community. In my opinion, as far as, I mean, I'm sure they're productive citizens in the U.S. and still Muslim, but as far as being in the public for us, like I said, I can count on one hand. But when they came back, I think in 2003, because I think in 2004 is when it stopped because of everything that was going on. When they came back from Abu Nur, which is that institute in Syria, they had the imam gave an event, a summer event, from my understanding. And he had all the students that went sitting in the front row, and then he had all the top imams sitting up there with him, like I say, around 2003. At the time on the stage. I don't know if anyone knows about this. And this is, I'm getting this, I don't think this is recording, but I'm getting it from one of the students. And what the imam pointed out was that the education that those students in Syria were getting was pretty much common high school level study and considered the basis of Islamic knowledge. He made that statement. Then he pointed to the imams up there on the top stage, on the stage with them, and he told them that what these students got, you didn't get. Y'all don't have what they're getting in Syria, which was the basic knowledge. And he told them, when you don't have basic knowledge, you don't want to go around saying the madhab of Imam Muhammad when you can't break it down to the basics. And that was told to the imams up there. So I know if the top imams, he told top imams that, then more likely most of the community didn't get it either. But I say that to say that evidently those students didn't get what the top imams got here, because, like I say, what are they doing today? But I just bring that up to say that we do have to get that balance. And I think in order for us to move forward, and I'll stop there.
And I'm in agreement with that. I do think that you have to have the empirical knowledge that comes from the type of study that they were doing in Syria, that some have done in Egypt and other places. What I think is just as important, or maybe more important, is that we codify, and I know there's some brothers already and sisters already working on this, that we codify the tafsir of Imam Muhammad, and that we make it the basis of what is taught in our masjids and of the religious education that is in our schools, and that be uniform. And any programs that we run, that tafsir, at whatever level, obviously depending on age and those type things, of how deep you go off into it, but it should form the underlying basis of an understanding of his teaching of Islam, and how we become one community in our understanding of that teaching. And kind of like what Adam was saying, it should be done that way without apology. If you're going to be here in this building, in this institution, this is what we teach. And I think that can help be a unifying factor in our community, along with a lot of other stuff that we need to work on.
I agree.
Yes, yes.
And
So,
go ahead, sis.
yes, we definitely need the solidarity, the unity. We have things we have to work on internally. And when other people come, other Muslims, they're believers, they have the right to go to whatever masjid they choose. The masjid is Allah's house. However, when they come around and we don't have what you're discussing, we don't have even a clear direction in which way we're going, even with the tafsir of Imam Mufti Muhammad Rahimahullah alayh, when we have excessive sports and play events. There's just some observations I've been doing within my own community. Excessive leisure events and just not enough, not, I don't know if we want to call it passion, but motivation and drive to build model communities, to establish material and spiritual growth and development. We don't have the same drive. And I don't know, I know people have good hearts and they have intentions, but we also need the knowledge, like you're saying, and the wherewithal to do something. Because you can be a good person and have well wishes and good intentions, but if there's no one to strategically plan and help move things along, we can just be on a hope and a prayer forever. And just the lack of respect sometimes for the leadership, for the people who have specific skill sets and knowledge and wherewithal. It's like they want to group everybody in one bucket. And if you move a little bit ahead of what they're familiar with, it's a problem. And so instead of really looking at the assets that we have in communities and building on those strengths, we have a lot of internal blocking and struggling and just revamping and re-looping around the same things we do every year. And I believe that once we have a clear direction, Imam Muhammad, the frustration I started to hear in those, just even this in this video, the videos that he started having as he grew older, because he was evolving as well. He did that because he was seeing a lack of progress. He was seeing a lack of practical application. That's all you started hearing. Practical application, because at some point we became complacent. And I don't know if I even have the right to say this, and I hope I'm not offending anybody, because I know there's a lot of imams that have been working fi sabilillah, just like Imam Khalil Akbar, and I have no idea of all the things that you guys have been through. But I can say I do see where the struggle is in the masjids that we have, and I do see that people are coming, bringing their families. We have a huge growth, taking shahadas. A lot of them are from different orientations. A lot of them are not just the immigrants, but the Salafi African Americans. But they'll come to our events, but they're very vocal about the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let me say that right, because I do know how to say it. But even that, they're very, I don't think it's critical, but because they don't see structure and they don't see, I don't know what they're looking for, but whatever it is, it appears that we're lacking in that because of their feedback. And they just say that they're not part of IWDM community, but they'll come out to our events and our Eves and bring their families and do good work and work at the summer camp and everything. But when it comes down to, sometimes they don't attend, like the Talim, they'll sit outside on a bench. And they had a conversation with them, or even the Jumals. And so I'm like, if you want to come and be a part, because I believe they do, what is stopping you from embracing it entirely? And if that's your choice, mashallah, but let's have some respect, some common ground. And also let's look at what we can do to not just polish up our act, but really come together with unity, because they sniffed that out. There's a lot of unity. There's people who undermine each other. There's politics. And there's a lack of knowledge in the deen. It really is a lack of self-study and self-application. And so maybe if we start there, the students that we're looking for, they could also come out and be more of a supportive in the areas of teaching and growing the ummah. But we probably need to just look at one step at a time. I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want to go into circles. But those are some of the observations. Assalamu alaikum.
Right. Well, like myself, now I'm gonna say something real quick. It could be as simple as something as us calling the Adan incorrectly. Something as simple as that. They like, you don't even have a mueddin that can call the Adan correctly. And it could be, and it's just a matter of teaching our mueddin how to call it correctly. But I've heard things like that, and that may be, that's I know that's some of the reasons why they like, man, what what are they doing? And then, like I say, the knowledge that we have is bar none that the imam gave us. But like I was saying, I think we skip a lot of steps and just go to what the imam said, and we can't represent the imam like that anymore because there's too much knowledge out there, and we got to be able to give the people the steps in between to how the imam got there. And if we can't do that, like I've said, we're doing him an injustice. And I'll stop there.
Yeah,
That's
Brother
right.
Ishmael, and that's what I mean about codifying his tafsir. So you take all of his teaching of how he taught Quran, how he taught the Sunnah of the Prophet, how he taught for us being in America in the situation that we're in, and how we process and execute al-Islam here. That when somebody comes in to any of our masjids, they're gonna start a journey, an educational, intellectual journey of understanding what the Imam taught and why he taught it, so that they are not confused. And I'm not talking about some simple thing like calling the Adhan correctly, but the actual teachings that are going on Friday and in Talim and in other settings, that they understand the genesis of that and the evolution of that, and why we do and say and act and believe in a certain way that they may see as a deviation from what they think is correct. And they have a right to think that, whatever school, that was spread out in front of them for them to devour and say, okay, this is the way. Now they're in a different situation, and they are now coming into contact with a new people who have a fresh version of al-Islam that includes all of the basics of al-Islam, but a fresh way of looking at that. And they need to learn that, just like we do. A lot of us probably need to go back and go from the beginning and have that structure of learning, of building one block on top of another block, so that we also understand it and can speak intelligently about it when we're questioned about it. And like I said, I think there are people in our community that are working on that, and hopefully they're doing a good job, but they deserve our support. And it's something that we should openly, from the bottom up, top down, that we should openly champion. That people should be waiting on this like they wait on a Stephen King novel, waiting on it to drop. Can't wait to get their hands on the entire, anthology, all of it.
Yes.
That in and of itself is one little leg that we have to have.
I want to say something that may be controversial, but I'm gonna start with this. When you have a lot of times when people have a business that has been going on for 50, 75 years, they put emphasis on the value of it based on the history of it. So they may give you an evaluation. Okay, I'm gonna sell my business for $150,000. But when you do a true evaluation of the business, it's probably worth 10,000. But they put so much emphasis on the history, and that does play a role in how you feel about something. But sometimes we got to be realistic with where we are, and start from a realistic point. And that could, like you said, that could be meaning most of us going back to the basics and filling in the gaps between what the Imam gave us and basic al-Islam. Some people may not want to hear that because they've been getting along fine the way it's been.
Right.
And case in point, this is where it might get kind of might get where it gets kind of controversial. The Muslim Journal. I'm not sure if anybody's part of it, selling it, but realistically, we know that physical newspapers do not sell like they used to. And sometimes in business, you have to just scrap it and start again. And if you are, this is me making a plea that sometimes we may just have to go digital for right now.
They call it a pivot, and
Right.
they actually applaud companies that pivot.
Exactly. We may have to go digital and maybe make it free to everyone. That way we might be able to get some type of people that want to, sell a certain product. We might have to pivot. And that's where I say a lot of the nostalgia, we put value in it in a real way, and is not a real dollar and cents type of value to it like that. And I'll stop there.
Sister Kalita, you had something you wanted to say, and I walked all over you, so I apologize for that, and hopefully you still have it front of mind.
Yes, just what the brother was saying. That was one of Professor Aisha Mustafa's strategies. That she said something about going digital at one of the Time to Be Grateful. Not this year, but the year before. They were just trying to come up with ideas to keep it sustainable. And Anissa Dewan was on that platform with her. So they are looking for innovative ways. So you're right on target. I wanted to share that there's also a lot of African that come to Juma, young African brothers, especially. They came recently too. And I had a sister she's African, but she's been over here and she speaks really good English, and her children pretty much grew up here. But she was telling me, because she didn't usually come inside either for a while, but she listens and she comes to everything, and her children go to her Sister Clara Muhammad school. But I guess she finally got comfortable with sharing it with me. But she said when we say Imam Muhammad, they were thinking that we were talking about Prophet Muhammad, like from the podium, until they started saying Worth the Dean Muhammad, and then they were thinking that we were doing shirk, practicing shirk. So some of it also could be a language barrier. But when I told my father, Imam Ronald Shaheed addressed it from the podium, and then so did my father at Juma, because they didn't want them thinking that. And some of it is a language barrier, because some of them are used to listening to, excuse me, to the Quran in Arabic. And then she herself had that in her mind too, because it was the way she was saying that they just seemed like they worship him. And then, but it was delivered that we do not worship him, but we do have the right to talk about him like the other communities have. Like you were saying, they have their people that they're scholars, and we reverence him. And I told her about the history and everything. So we just need to make sure that we understand that it could be also language barriers when we have diverse groups of Muslims, and we want to put our best foot forward, because we don't want everybody to think, oh, what is your story? I know one time there was a brother was sharing that he had an experience that they think that everybody came out of jail. What is your story? Were you born Muslim, or what is your story? So we want to not only share the stories of the Malcolm X's, but we want to also share the second and third generation stories too, people who were born Muslim, and everybody's not coming out of the street. Like when we promote the history, we need to have a well-rounded picture as well. And that's it. I'm like,
It's interesting that you say that. I was at Interfaith Iftar. I think I shared a couple of pictures they had, like the guy dancing. I can't remember what they call them. The twirler, the whirling dervish, right? So this particular iftar was given by Turkish Muslims, and I'm sitting at a table with one of the organizers, and also actually the other guy that was sitting on the side of me, on the right of me. He and his wife was the director of Thanksgiving Square. So we were all sitting at the same table, and I was asking them about their movement, because they're a sect that's persecuted. They're Muslims, but they're a sect that's persecuted in Turkey. Their leader just passed away, a brother by the name of Gulam. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Ishmael, you may have to help me there. I think you know who I'm talking about. And we were talking about how they spread their message, how their community grows, because their community is growing, and they're making lots of connection with lots of different groups and things of that nature. And he said one thing we don't do is we don't explain. We be. We are Muslim. We act Muslim. We dress correctly. We speak correctly. We invite people. We feed people. We share with people. We educate people. But we don't explain to people why we are who we are. We are. And if you can't see it in us, you're not going to understand the words. And those, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm pretty close. That's what he said. And he said it with a smile and was very happy to share that with me. We can stand on, if we are correct in our practice of al-Islam and in following the tafsir of Imam W.D. Muhammad, we don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. We have to offer what we have to the rest of the world. And that's what I mean by us getting everything together to be able to educate people, to put something in their hands, to be able to take them through classes so that they understand where they are, why they are there, what it's going to do for them. And they can grow in the stages. The Quran was given in stages. We grow in stages. If they're going to really be able to understand and become a part of our community, of what we want our community to be, they can't have all of it dumped on them at once and just assume that they're going to be able to pick it up and understand it. We have to come to them or be open to sharing the knowledge with them bit by bit so that they can understand it. We also have to live it, because that following in the prophet's footsteps was the absolute best way for people to understand what it meant to be Muslim. And it should be the same with us. And of course, we're all at different stages, but we are supposed to be working toward that, which when people follow us around, that they know that we're different. And they have to ask, what are we? But they want to imitate us. And they want to learn how we got to where we are. And yeah, because this is a country of, whatever, 350 million people or whatever, we're actually going to have aids, books and different things and classes to assist us in their evolution, in our own evolution. All of us need to learn more. And that's one of the things that I'm really hoping that, when we're there in Philadelphia and we're talking about building on the future that Imam W.D. Muhammad has spread out for us, that we're talking about things like this for ourselves and for those that are going to join with us.
I was speaking with some of the I guess the people that are going to do the Philadelphia event, and I was telling them I was on the fence, and the reason I told them I was on the fence is because we have the culture night, we have these different events, but very seldom do we talk about what are we going to do forward. And I think Sunday they're supposed to have some type of from 2008 and beyond. And I told them, I told them if y'all don't have some of the younger leaders that are working right now there and hearing their voice, So I'm probably not going to come more than likely because we can talk about it theoretically, but we need to put these leaders that are that are working now presently and in the future. Their voice needs to be put out there. They need to be put in a position where they can actually speak on where they see us going. And they said they're going to work on it because I don't know if you actually have actual names that y'all are going to have. But I told them if it's just going to be talking in general, I may not be able to make it. So I'll stop there.
I'm with you, Ishmael. Now I'm going to be there because I'm representing 1985 to 1995. It's right in my wheelhouse, right?
Okay, right.
So
Mhm.
I understand that. I'm going to cover that decade because I know that decade extremely well. Those that are going to be discussing, as you said, 2008 and beyond, hopefully that's somebody that's going to be active and intelligent and able to do something in 2050,
Exactly. Yes, sir.
right?
Yep.
Because those people, they need to be able to see their vision through and still have the energy and everything to be a driving force of that. So, you and I had this discussion outside the museum. That definitely needs to be people under the age of 50.
Yes, sir.
It didn't make any sense with me in my 60s to be there other than an advisor if they need to turn around and ask me a question about something that happened in the past.
Right. Or get some type of wisdom or something. I agree.
Or some type of wisdom or just guidance that this is what you're trying to do is not al-Islam. If you change it a little bit here, then it's in line with al-Islam. Okay, I'm good. I can do that. But the people who start to implement those policies, those changes, need to be able to see it through all the way. And the rest of us can be advisors. I'm a great advisor. Call me early in the week when I got a lot of energy. I'm a great advisor.
Exactly.
But I'm probably not going to be able to put in the 80 to 100 hours of hard work that it's going to take for the next 35 years, 25 years, excuse me, the next 25 years to get us to 2050. That takes a different age group of person who also needs to understand the tafsir Imam W.D. Muhammad. So that if they're pushing toward a goal, they understand that which would be acceptable to his vision and that which would not be acceptable to his vision. But you gotta have the encyclopedia or the Constitution or whatever you want to call it. You've got to have it and the Quran and the Sunnah so you can reflect back on all of it. Use it all as a filter to what you're trying to accomplish. And right now, we have it bouncing around in some people's heads, but we don't have it codified so that anybody can have their hands on it and walk around with it every day. You should be burdened. You should have the Quran under one arm and the tafsir of Imam W.D. Muhammad under the other arm. We need this.
Look
Like
at
Islam.
other institutions preserve knowledge, like Howard University, like Yale. The people who are the founders, yes, they modify and they change that, but their indoctrination, so to speak, their mission, goals, and objectives, pretty much, they stay pretty much the same. And so I say that to say, we know that people, even us, when you have a vision, you're going to make it your vision and you're going to implement things the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires you. But you still want a solid foundation. That's what you're saying. And my niece, she's young. And she said she didn't like the fact that when she did come to the masjid, because they said, we need to bring our youth, we need to bring our youth, that they're either scripting something for them or just dropping things in their lap. Like, we're gonna here, you do it, take it. They don't want that. They like a merge as well. They want that wisdom, They want that leadership because if you look at life, it's a progression. No race does that. They keep those wisdom, they keep those things that got them to where they are, but they also make place for those youth to take hold of it and design it and move with that paradigm shift. But that solid foundation is still the same. If you read the Quran, Allah says you will find no change in our ways. He teaches man the same way. He teaches us through parables, through lessons of the prophets. If they weren't relevant today, we wouldn't be able to apply them. So there's wisdom in that. And when the Quran says that it's wisdom in, I'm living in airport, excuse me. But there's wisdom in that. And when if we got to find a way to find a middle ground, because we can still, as people who are 50 plus, you can still write your books, you can create your libraries, you can open those universities, you can leave that past that generational wealth, so they're not starting from scratch. They don't have to go through what we want through. That's what they're looking for. They don't just want things to be dropped in their lap, because there's a lot of things that they don't have the knowledge of, but they do have the youth. They're very intelligent. They have the energy, they have their vision, and they know how to interact with the young generation, but they're going to also return to Allah. So it's a progression. It's never going to stop as long as we are human beings. So we're going to have to pass that baton in a way that's solid, leave them something that they can carry on and change and modify as they will. But don't underestimate that, because Allah even says that you will find no change in our ways. He teaches us from things that happened centuries ago. And some stories, he just uses them as lessons for us. So I get that, because we do that here at the masjid too. And I do believe, we're sick of seeing the same people all the time, and you'll get sick of yourself. Like my father said, if you were just the best person in the world and you just sat and looked at yourself in the mirror all the time and no one else was around you, you get sick of yourself. And I think we're at that point in our community that we have specific leaders and specific people who do the same thing all the time. And that diversity has not filtered in like it has. So we're just overdrawn with bringing the youth. We're sick of you, but we have to make sure that it's a natural progression and we make space for them every stage of the way. So they're not just coming out of the bag with everything. You're not gonna have to tell them, oh, that's not Islamic. They're gonna know. They do that in every other nationality. Like I don't know, I go to the immigrant masjids, they have a space for them. They have a lot more resources right now. They even have a big nature park and they're constantly remodeling and renaming their masjids. But when I go to the masjid, they just named it the Five Pillars under John Elderer, and he was a friend of my father's. He looks Caucasian. I know he was from New York initially, but he actually has a huge variety of his congregation. He has white Muslims, black Muslims, African Muslims, Asian Muslims, Latino Muslims. It's a whole different atmosphere, and they're just like us. He has a lot of young teenagers, and nobody's perfect, but they want that space. But again, we have to have something established for them. We're not going to get away with answering to Allah and just passing the torch. We gave it to the youth, but we didn't really build a solid foundation. So what we need to do in our age group is put our resources together, just like one of the imams said, even if it's your 401k or if you have a life insurance policy, we need to start gathering our resources and getting ready to donate them to the masjid or put them in the hands of our youth, but also write those books and be in their spaces when they want us to. They need separate spaces too, teaching and listening and building ideas together. I think that's important as well, inshallah.
In other words, we got a lot of work to do. And we're going to have to be together to do it. And it's going to have to happen pretty quickly. Because I got a feeling that it's coming to a head. So Imam Tariq, will you close us out this evening? Hopefully we haven't bored you to sleep. Well, maybe we did. Brother Ishmael, will you close us out with the dua?
I sound like, yeah, thank you. I was just
Okay.
about to have, if you would ask for someone
Okay.
else to
All
do it, I
right.
had to step away for a minute. Please forgive me.
Okay. No problems whatsoever, my brother. Imam Tariq, you're on mute. We do want you to close us out.
Okay. All right. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. آمين.